Hey everyone, my name's Tim, and this episode is brought to you by our sponsor, Riverside FM. As a content creator, I'm always looking for ways that I can make my processes a little more efficient. And one of the ways I've been doing that with Riverside is through the use of its AI tools such as Magic Clips. With Magic Clips, I can identify a bunch of potential clips for repurposing to social media with the click of a button. This is a great way to help your podcast or YouTube channel get more reach via the whole range of platforms that accept short form video posts. And the best part of this is that you can do so much to prepare the clips within Riverside by changing the layout, adding captions of different styles, adding text, or even adding images. And once you put it all together, the final result looks great. If you want to try this yourself, check out the link in my description and use the code MyTogBlog for a 15% discount. And now, on to the show. What if I told you there was this thing that could give you more strength, energy, creativity, and might even help you to live longer? Well, there is, and it's available to most of us right now. The challenge is that to see the benefits, you need to set aside 45 to 60 minutes 3 times per week, expend some energy to do it, and do that on a reasonably consistent basis. Of course, I'm talking about physical exercise. And I don't know about you, but whenever I get super busy or stressed out about something, physical exercise is one of the first things that will be tossed overboard in my effort to save time or energy to deal with whatever immediate issue that I'm dealing with at that particular time. And somehow that's true, even though I know that exercise is one of the things that will help me the very most at that time. And of late, I've found this to be particularly frustrating. I'm ready for change. And if you're ready for change too, then this episode is for you. Because today we're going to speak with fitness expert Daniel Yores about how content creators and other super busy people can incorporate physical exercise into their daily routines so we can overcome the barriers to doing that and reap the benefits that I was talking about at the beginning of the episode. Daniel is a personal trainer and online fitness coach from Toronto, Canada. He teaches people how to build muscle, lose body fat, improve their mobility, and enhance their life overall. He's also the host of the Daniel Yores podcast, a health and fitness podcast focused on providing actionable fitness and health advice and insights from some of the industry's top experts. And in our discussion, we're going to go deep about how we can better prioritize our time to make space for physical exercise, create structure and accountability to help us to reach our goals, and build and maintain momentum with the right mindset shift. So sit back and relax, and let's get into it. Daniel, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Tim. It's a pleasure to be here. It's going to be fun. This will be my first podcast, I think, that's sort of outside of the fitness space specifically. So I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, I thought it would be really interesting to talk with you because you're kind of outside content creation space. So it's like a crossover episode.
Yeah, I guess so. It's an interesting point that you bring up in that because I don't consider myself to be a content creator, although, of course, I do create content. Like, I'm a coach, I'm a personal trainer. That is what I do. And I also create content to support that, but I don't create content for the sake of creating content.
Right. Yeah. And it's interesting you mentioned that because in one of my earlier episodes, I talk about how a lot of creators start as content creators and then try to find business that can support that. But many other people like yourself actually start with the business and the content creation supports the business. So I think that's more of the right way to do it if they're trying to go full time.
Yeah, I mean, who knows what the right and wrong way is, and different things will suit different people, but I think it does make sense just because it's so hard to play the content creation game. It's like you're competing with all the mega stars, all the big companies, all of the big influencers and butts and flash and glam and all that stuff. And then, anyone as like a regular person who doesn't have that thing, it's like you're competing with that. And so what are you going to do to possibly stand out? Well, you've got to be able to compete on the glitz and glam or compete on like being such an expert in something that people want to tune into what you have to talk about. And if you don't have that, that's cool. That's fine. But you're playing a very difficult game.
It's definitely challenging. Yep. One of the things I think that is tough about content creation is that a lot of creators do have a full-time job outside of content creation, or they're running a business. Content creation is something outside of that. So how does somebody, with all that going on, find the time for physical fitness? Because you might know intellectually, I think we all know that physical fitness is important, but still, it's still another thing on the to-do list, right? So what's your advice to clients to make it happen?
I should hope that everyone by now knows that physical fitness is important and physical health is vitally important. But, the advice is not going to be drastically different for someone who is a content creator and has a job is because everyone is busy, right? I mean, ask 10 people if they're busy in their life and they'll all tell you they're busy and but busy is relative, right? So we've all got lots of things going on and that's totally okay. I think the biggest thing is really taking a hard look at like auditing your calendar. Where do you actually have time for this? Now, before we kind of figure out where to slot things in, is understanding that fitness doesn't have to take up your entire life. Unless you are trying to, go to the Olympics or, step on a bodybuilding stage or something crazy like that, it doesn't have to take up, 10, 15, 20 hours a week. 3 hours a week, maybe for workouts, 3 times 1 hour workouts, and, some little bit of time for food prep, sneak some walks in the day. And so once you understand that, okay, this is not going to take a crazy amount of time, great. Do you have 3 to 5 additional hours in the week and not in a row, but spread out over the week that you can allocate to taking care of your health and fitness via workouts, via walking, via meditation, via food preparation, grocery shopping, all of those things, which a lot of those things, especially in the food department, like you're doing anyways. We just need to optimize that a little bit. So the reality is you've got to look at your schedule, figure out where you can fit things in, because this is crucially important to your health and well-being and is going to make everything else in your life better. So there's kind of a cliche quote to wrap this up that if you don't make time for your wellness, you will be forced to make time for your sickness later on.
Yeah, that's very true. And it's interesting what you mentioned about it doesn't have to be crazy time. And I think that does become one of the barriers. It's almost like an all or nothing attitude, right? You start making those gains, keep that going. But then sometimes things in life happen. They derail our plans. And I find too, like if you've got an emergency at work, right, for content creators, you've got like a sponsorship deadline or video you're trying to get put out. That's the stuff that's going to get done. And one of the first things that's going to be tossed overboard is your fitness routine. And then what happens to that is you think, well, okay, I didn't make it to the gym 3 times this week. So like, why make it to start again next week? And like the mindset tends to take hold. How do you counsel clients to get away from?
So it's understanding what you're trying to do and ranking it in your priority list. Are work emergencies real emergencies? Sometimes they are, but at what cost? If the workouts are making you feel good, they're making you perform better, they're making you happier in your personal life and just generally healthier overall, that should be pretty high up the priority list. Now, I know that sounds, oh, of course it is. The fitness guy talking about how fitness is so important. It's same as like a realtor telling you that it's always a good time to buy a house. Like I get the bias, but I've never met anyone who regretted, going to the gym, getting fit, getting healthy. This is just the truth. I don't make money from you going to the gym. So there's no inherent benefit in this for me. So understanding the level of priority that it has in your life is extremely important. And number 2 is just having some plan of attack to incorporate structure and accountability into your fitness. Accountability can come from hiring a coach, can come from just having a gym buddy that you're expected to meet at the gym. You guys work out together, or, a friend who you're going to text them and talk about workouts. And it's one thing to let yourself down. It's one thing to drop the ball on yourself. It's another thing to kind of drop the ball, so to speak, on someone else. You always feel worse about that. So when we have that built-in accountability via any of those methods or any of the other methods that you might come up with, you're far more likely to stick to it. And even if you have, crazy week, things happen, it's chaos and you missed 1, 2, 3 workouts, that's fine, because at least you're not going to let that 1 week or that one bad week downward spiral into, 3 bad weeks and then 3 bad months. It's like, okay, we had a bad week. Great. Shake it off, dust yourself off, and back at it the next week. And then you're good to go. So structure and accountability are the real keys to this.
Yeah. I think that's where some of those apps that we that they show your progress and it's almost becomes gamified. And it's funny you mentioned about like any kind of method of accountability. I once bought this calendar and it came with these stickers you could put in, had doctor's appointment or lunch. It also had little barbells for workouts.
Nice.
That was like one of my best accountability hacks I had for a while, because I would actually think, well, if I don't work out, I'm not going to be able to put the sticker.
There you go. I mean, it's a bit of a funny thing to say, and
Yeah.
it's gamified or childish, if you
Mm.
will. But the reality is that the calendar, your Google Calendar on your phone or whatever calendar you use, is one of the best fitness tools you have. If you
Yeah.
schedule that thing in, okay, Wednesday at 7 p.m., I'm going to the gym. You are far more likely to actually make it to the gym that
Right.
at that day and time, rather than if you just leave it open and say like,
True.
oh, well, one day after work this week, I'll make it to the gym, because you can
True.
always push it off to tomorrow. When it's set in your
Yeah.
calendar, it's written down, you're way more likely to stick to it. So calendar is actually an extremely underrated app or
Yeah.
piece of technology to use to increase your fitness.
Definitely. Love the calendars. But also I found that it's good to have that day, but you also have a bit of flexibility. So you kind of set that general target, like I'm going to the gym 3 times this week. Doesn't happen Wednesday, morning for whatever reason. It's not a disaster. You can just move it to the next available slot calendar.
Exactly.
Yes.
There's always got to be some room for flexibility, because things are going to happen, right? Don't
Yeah.
drop everything else in your life at the expense of going for a workout. Like, that's not right either. Understand that fitness is a forever game. There's no winning, there's no losing, there's no even failing at your fitness. Like, as long as you don't
Right.
totally give up and never go work out again, you didn't
Right.
fail, and you can start again as many times as you want. So you miss a workout today, you miss a workout next week, you miss workouts for a month, not ideal, but okay. And you just get back on the horse and you get back
Yeah.
going at it. So you have to get out of that mindset as best as you can, where one missed thing or one misstep is not a failure. You didn't ruin anything, and you
Right.
can always keep going, because there's no finish line anyways. Like,
Right.
once you go to the gym every single day for a year, like, you don't just win the gym and never go again. Like, you
Yeah.
just keep going forever. It might change and morph, but you keep going for forever.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great philosophy, because I think that's a major challenge is, because it's never ending, you kind of feel like you have to keep it up to keep up your fitness level. And then when it goes this time, maybe it's a couple or 3 weeks for whatever reason. And then getting back to it, it's like, oh, I was here, now I'm down here. It's like, it's the fight to get back. But it's not as hard once you get back in. I think people overestimate that sometimes.
Yeah, that is very correct to say. I mean, I think define one thing for people is that it's much harder to get in shape than it is to maintain your level of fitness. To maintain your level of fitness takes relatively very little work, right? But if you're trying to lose, 40, 50 pounds and build all this muscle and like make a huge body transformation, that is difficult. But once you get there to that point where you're happy, it's actually pretty easy to maintain it. So know that it's not going to be that difficult for forever. Plus, you'll also learn to love it and learn to love the progress and find happiness in that. You mentioned, apps that might help in
Right.
tracking your progress in these things. And any of the apps that exist are fine, like, as long as you're tracking things. So one thing
Right.
that I've come to realize this past week really is that the fun part of working out is the results. Nobody really wants the working out part. You don't want to go to the gym, you don't want to do the work, but you enjoy the results. Now, in order to get those results, you have to do the work, of course. To make that work less boring, we have to find ways to keep ourselves interested. Keeping track of your progress. So, this week I lifted 100 pounds for 10 reps. Next week, I want to try and lift 105 pounds for
Yeah.
10 reps, right? And you're always having these little tiny wins, just like week after week, day after day. And this is a way to keep chasing that next thing, keep seeking that next little win, that next little highlight. If through content creation, you hit 100 subscribers, then you hit 500, and then you hit 1,000, like, you're never going to get to a point where it's like, okay, good. I've got enough subscribers now. I'm good. Mr. Beast is still
Yeah.
chasing higher subscriber numbers. So for the rest of us, like, it's never going to end. Mr. Olympia and the current Mr. Olympia,
Yeah.
Chris Bumstead, and all the best powerlifters and every of all time, they squat 1,000 pounds. They're like, oh, I wish I could do 1,005 pounds.
Right.
Like, there's no end to this. So the progress is the fun part, and the more you can keep track of that using even
Mhm.
literally just Google Sheets or like an Excel
Mhm.
sheet or a note on your phone. There doesn't need to be a fancier app, and there are millions of them out there. None of them are particularly better than the other, but as long as you're tracking something, just so you can say like, hey, I am making progress, and I can see that I'm making progress, to put something tangible to it, because it is such slow burn all the way through. And if you're not paying attention, you might not even notice that you're making progress.
Yeah, I do find those apps very helpful just to see the you'll increase, like say over time, and it does become like a bit of a game. And it's fun at some point to look back at where you started. But that's definitely, I think, part of what makes working out fun. I think there's a flip side to it, though, where you mentioned about progress. And I found that periods when I was going at it harder, working out a fair amount, I would get to a point where I would plateau. Just like you deal with content creation, you get to 1,000 subscribers or 20,000, wherever that plateau level is for you. And then the growth stops. And then it does become kind of harder. It is easy to maintain. It was very hard to make gains at some point. How do you maintain your motivation in those periods? Because I find that's like the most dangerous period in a way for your consistency, as outside when you're just getting started, trying to get out of it. So it's like, okay, I cannot increase this even by another 5 pounds right now.
Definitely true that that is a difficult part to maintain consistency through. So I think that the solution to this is understanding that it's very easy to make progress at the beginning in fitness. And I'm going to kind of tie this in with content stuff because obviously this is relevant to me as well. It's easier to make gains at the beginning and the percentage increases are larger, right? Going from 100 subscribers to 200 subscribers is a 2x of your subscriber count, right? That's a big gain, right? But it's also only quote unquote an additional 100 subscribers, right? So it gets more difficult to make gains in the gym as you go along, right? If you could just put on 5 pounds to the barbell every single week, there'd be people out here, squatting 70,000 pounds. Like it would be insane. So the thing to understand is that what got you from A to B is not necessarily going to get you from B to C.
Right.
And that's okay. You just have to understand that that's the truth. And now you have to ask yourself, am I willing and able to do the things that are going to get me from B to C? And you might not know what the answer to those things is, right? And this is where you have to look for more information and, look into mentorship groups or coaching or an app or a program or something of the nature to find out what you don't know so that you can implement that. And then you decide, hey, am I willing and able to do this? If yes, then great, do it and, run the program or whatever it is. And hopefully it works for you. And if you're not, then you have to just be content with like, hey, I now I know what it takes to get to the next step. I'm not willing and or able to do that. And so therefore you'll be content with staying where you are. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. Like as far as health is concerned, it's probably totally fine.
Right.
But the difficulty comes from expecting something that's not going to happen. The reality of what you're doing is just not going to get you the results that you're expecting. And so there's a disconnect there. Same as again with content, right? The thing that gets you to 1,000 subscribers is not going to be the thing that gets you to 100,000 subscribers or 1,000,000 subscribers. And every level you go up, not that I know what it's like to have 1,000,000 subs, but every level you go up, there has to be more, there has to be different. There's a different expectation. There's a different thing that takes you to get to that next level. And so again, you just got to understand what that is. And are you willing and able to do that?
Yeah, for sure. And I have these theories that, sometimes it's nutrition, sometimes it's like the amount of times you're going to the gym, sleep, get all those things. Like you say, something probably fairly significant has to change.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say what it might be because it could be so many things, right? Like you said, it could be your sleep, could be your nutrition, could be your stress level at work, could be the way that you're actually training. There could be something that needs to change with your workouts or your program or the structure of your workouts or the form that you're using to work out or the amount of water that you're drinking during the day. Like it could be any number of things and maybe multiple of those things. But you've got to understand that like, okay, something's got to change because obviously you can't keep banging your head against the wall and expect it to work. Like that's the definition of insanity, right? So yeah, you got to look into these things and probably get some external help or at least look external to yourself because, why would you know how to do that stuff? Like I don't know how to, change the engine out of my car. If I had to do that, I would hire a mechanic, like, because I don't know how to solve the problem. I know that much. And so if you're at a plateau and you just can't figure it out, oftentimes the solution isn't all that elaborate, but it's just something that may be overlooked because you didn't think about it.
And very true. There's parallels with content creation there. Like if you're stuck at a certain subscriber level, that's where you have to look at, okay, what do I have to do differently? You have to upload more, you have to significantly up the quality of the content. It's there somewhere. Like you say, sometimes you actually need outside help in order to figure it out.
Exactly. And there's different things at different levels, right? Like probably for any beginner content creator, again, Your biggest problem is you just don't even know what you don't know. You got to go out there and just make like 100 posts or videos or, whatever platform it is that you're creating content on. Just go out there and spew garbage out on the internet and then see what sticks and what doesn't. And probably it's going to suck, but that's okay. You have to learn about the platforms and how people interact with them and how you interact with them and what you like and what you don't like and what you're good at and what you're not good at. Like, you need to learn these things. So same thing in the gym is like, just go in there and do stuff and see what happens. And then analyze that. And this is the part where people get stuck, right? Is like, go in there and do stuff, fine, but then analyze it. Like, okay, what is actually working? What is not working? Same with content creation. You can't just put out 1,000 videos and be like, oh, it doesn't work. But your 1,000th video is just as bad as your first video. Because that means you obviously didn't learn anything. That's extremely unlikely to happen. I mean, that's too big of a number to make that example. But you have to pay attention to what you're doing and then try and iterate a little bit along the way and just learn a little bit more each time. But at some point, it's like, okay, we got to optimize thumbnails. The posting time needs to, be more aligned to my audience or whatever thing it is. So there's different things at different levels that would get you to different places. Same advice that I would give to someone who's been in the gym for 9 years, who's stepping on a powerlifting stage is not the same advice that I would give to someone who's walked in a gym for their first time.
Figure out where, like you said, where the gap is, how do you fix it?
There's only a few buckets. So the 9-year professional powerlifter, there's training, there's nutrition, there's sleep, there's their mobility, there's a few things. And the same thing is true for the beginner. It's just, what is their ability and willingness to do these things at what level of intensity and what level of that advice? And again, same with content creation. It's going to come down to your posting frequency, the quality of your posts, maybe the quality of the equipment that you're using, your ability to attract attention, your ability to retain attention, these kind of things. And that advice, it comes from those same buckets that you need to continue to improve. They're just going to be different levels within those buckets all the way up the rankings, I guess.
It is a lot like that. And then like we're saying about progress and progress levels of maintaining motivation. I did find there were a couple of strategies that were helpful for me in the period where, I started listening to podcasts, for example, like time at the gym, or sometimes I plan content creation as well. And I think you find things like that to make the process itself more enjoyable as well.
For sure. I mean, put your favorite playlist on, your favorite music, your favorite podcast, to listen to a YouTube video, think about other stuff. Like any of those things are good. And these are just, find ways to make it suck less for you. And I say that very deliberately because I don't expect that. Like, I obviously love going to the gym. It's like my favorite part of the day is when I get to go work out, right? If I could just stay there all day, I would. But I understand that that's not everyone, and I don't expect everyone to be like that. So saying like, hey, you've got to fall in love with it and fall in love with the process and find like it's a nice goal. Yeah. It's nice, but I don't think it's going to happen. So it's like, we got to find ways to just at least make this suck less. How can we remove barriers to you going? Is it buying new workout clothes to motivate you? Again, having a gym buddy, joining a new gym, even just to switch the environment for the sake of, new faces, new equipment, new music, new whatever, new energy. These kind of little things, having your workout clothes packed in your bag in your car so that you don't have to go home and before you go to the gym after work. And by the time you get home, you'll find an excuse. It's like, I can just skip it today. Right. So it's these things, removing the barriers to make fitness just a part of your life, and understanding again that you're not going to love every aspect of this, but you are going to love what it gives you. And so if you can just wrap your head around that, you'll be able to stick through those tough times a little bit better.
Yeah, that's so huge what you said about removing barriers, because that was my best setup when we lived right that had the fitness center in the basement level, right? Because it's like get all the work I'll have to do after I have dinner. It's just
it's a big one for a lot of people, right? There's even some people who they will purposely sleep in their gym clothes so that they remove the barrier of changing into the gym clothes. So they wake up and they're like, oh yeah, I'm supposed to go to the gym now. And they do that. And to each their own, it works, right?
Yeah. So one of the things about that though is we're talking about removing barriers, right? And let's say you have a bedroom and living in a small space, just space. Well, what would you recommend? Get in shape.
You can definitely still get in shape with minimal equipment. I would say it's very hard with like no equipment. If you haven't even got like a set of resistance bands to work out with, you can do, a bunch of push-ups and squats and stuff. But the issue with that is it's extremely boring because it's so repetitive because you've only got like a handful of things that you can do. It's also not easier. Like when you go to the gym, you can do a bench press with 10 pounds.
Right.
And at home, if you don't have any weight or external resistance to use, like you're stuck with push-ups, and push-ups for a lot of people are very difficult. And I want people to know that because everyone knows what a push-up is. Everyone's, maybe done push-ups in gym class in high school, but like now that we're not children anymore, like push-ups are difficult. So if you struggle with push-ups, I promise you that you are not alone, and they are difficult. But at the gym, you can like use less than your body weight to do that pressing motion, right? So the real strategy is one, and I always bring things back to like setting expectations accordingly. You are not going to become some super jacked, shredded, big meathead monster by working out at your house with 20-pound dumbbells. That is just not going to happen. And that's okay. You don't have to be that way, right? Most people don't want to be that way. You can certainly be healthy. You still have the outdoors to be able to, walk or run or perhaps cycle or whatever. But, again, no equipment, so not even a bike or anything like that. Walk or run. You can still do that outside. You can still do plenty of strength training exercises with dumbbells alone and getting slightly creative using, chairs or couches or doorways and various things that are already in your home. There's infinite videos out there with, these kind of tips and stuff like that. You've just got to understand that it's going to be a little bit more monotonous than if you had more equipment to play with. So again, this is a trade-off that you're willing to make, right? Or you must be willing to make, where if your situation is that you don't have access to a gym and don't have access to more equipment or what have you, it's going to be a little bit more monotonous, but you can make significant progress and can be very healthy. And that is the most important part. Health first, all the other stuff is second. So I wouldn't shy away from doing it or not do it if you don't have a ton of equipment. You do what you can, and you've got to spend the time to be a little bit more creative with using the equipment that you do have access to.
That's good, because I think, it's a situation a lot of people might be in if they're not super independent. That's right. They don't have access to a gym and they're just got what they've got at home. They can buy a local Canadian Tire or whatever the equivalent is that they have.
I mean, so I've trained a number of people who started out exactly like you're saying. It's like, okay, I want to work out on, I want to work out with you online. And, I've got these dumbbells. I think they're somewhere in the house. I got them a long time ago. And like this, like one stretchy band that's like kind of ripped and like, whatever. So like, okay, let's start with that. That's fine. And every single time that's happened, the person gets because when you train intelligently, even within those limitations, you'll start to notice positive benefits. You feel better. And it's like, oh, okay, well, how can I do this better? It's like, okay, great. Can you buy these other pieces of equipment?
Right.
Yes or no? Or can you join a gym? And so people always want to get more into it and they become fitness people or, more like fitness people. So it's a great place to start. I just think that you are significantly likely that if you start seeing positive results, which you should, that you're going to want to invest more in terms of time or money or energy into your fitness. And you'll probably end up joining a gym at some point or buying a significant amount of home equipment.
True. I do find that as you get more into work, definitely you want to do more. I definitely I've seen.
Yeah.
And this might seem like a weird question, given what we've been talking about. I think sometimes we do think this way, especially when we're in that period of getting started. I haven't seen the benefits yet. People might be thinking, okay, what's the minimum amount that I should be doing in order to see some health?
Yeah. So this concept of the minimum one, I think it's a flawed way of thinking. I know that's not what you're asking me, but it's a flawed way of thinking. Like it's not about how can I do the most, but how can I do the least to get the most results? Like you're not going to get the most results by doing the least amount of effort. So like that's just like we need to get that out of the way. But to get some amount of results, I would say like the least you could do is probably 2 hours of workouts a week. Now, honestly, it could even be less than that because it depends on what you're starting. And if you literally do like no exercise and your step count on the day is 1,500 steps on the whole day, like increasing the amount of steps that you're taking in a day could be the minimum effective dose to start seeing some positive results. So taking 1,500 steps a day, like can we increase that to 3,000? which by the way, on average is like 30 minutes of walking. Like this is not a crazy thing to cumulative throughout the day. So the minimum effective dose is like just a little bit more than whatever you're doing now. Now, assuming someone is not having a very, very low step count, their diet is more or less okay. I think 2 strength training sessions is, in my experience, it's been the minimum amount to start seeing some like pretty positive results as far as like muscle building and mobility and feeling good and increasing your energy and just like increasing your body's ability to do stuff. For beginners, 1 time a week is like, it just, as soon as you adapt from the workout, there's so much time passes that you then like de-adapt.
Yeah.
I don't know, that's not even a word, but you de-adapt
I know what you mean.
from the workout, and then you just like you're restarting every single week. So twice a week, I'd say, is like kind of minimum if you're at that level. But again, if you're not at that level, like making some better food choices and not thinking about your exercise at all could be the starting point. And that could be enough to snowball a giant cascade of positive events. Going to bed 30 minutes earlier, drinking, 2 extra glasses of water, drinking 1 less glass of wine a night. Like all of these little things can be starting points. And I've had clients who, we do almost nothing on paper and they have tremendous results. I know I'm ranting a little bit, but I'll tell a quick story to just to paint the picture. There was a client of mine a while back and he drank a lot of soft drinks, soda, whatever. Right. And in the beginning, he was very overweight, had some injuries and these things. And so all we did in the first 2 weeks of working together was I said, okay, he was drinking 4 to 5 like Cokes, Candy Coke a day, which is obviously a lot, right? And everyone knows that conceptually. I said, okay, we've got to reduce this. This is like our biggest needle mover. It's not like the rest of his diet was healthy either. I said, like, you can still eat out, do whatever you got to do. We got to cut these sodas down. So I said, can you do 1 a day? From 5, can you do 1 a day? He said, I'll do you 1 better. I'll do 1 every other day. Phenomenal. And that was all he did. For 2 weeks, he lost about 12 pounds, started feeling better, really started like having some major positive results. And then that cascaded into much more weight loss and more time in the gym and a bunch of other positive things from there. But, the long answer to your question is like the minimum that you can do to get results is a little bit more than what you're doing right now.
Great. Yeah. And I asked that because I think sometimes people don't realize that small changes do matter. You can see good improvements from that. And like you say, it cascades. You start to want to make better choices because of the already better choices that you can make. So
exactly. Even the upper end of the amount of time that you're going to spend is also not even that high. Like if you went to the gym to lift every single day, which for most people, I don't even recommend doing that. But so that's 7 days. Let's call it an hour workout, which is on average, that's 7 hours. And if you did that plus like a few hours of cardio a week, let's call it 10 hours out of 168 hours in the week. Like that is a crazy amount of exercise. It's still not like that much. So when you know that, and this goes back to what we were talking about like very early on in the conversation, like when you know that, you can say, oh, this is actually not as overwhelming as I thought it would have to be. You don't have to be in the gym for 2-3 hours every day. That's ridiculous. You don't need to do that. So can you get away with a lot less than that? Absolutely you can, and have tremendous results.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think sometimes too, what happens is we go to the gym and it takes longer than it needs to because of time between sets and like the pacing. Because there's probably whole ways you can work out programs to keep that on track too.
Yeah. And I hate to keep bringing it back to this, but this just comes into everything. It's just being aware of what you're doing. So the reason that you waste time in the gym is because you went to the gym without a plan. If you made a plan, you said, okay, I've got 45 minutes to get in and out of the gym. Takes me, 10 minutes to drive there, 10 minutes to drive home or back to work or wherever you're going. Fine. You got 45 minutes in and out. Well, write a workout or have a workout written for you. That will take about 45 minutes. And then also know within that how to adjust that. So, you need to use that piece of equipment. Well, that piece of equipment is busy. Can I do this exercise, fourth in my rotation instead of second in my rotation? If yes, then great, make that switch. Or I can't get to that piece of equipment. It's too busy. Too many people are using it. What other exercise can I do instead? You stick to your 45 minutes. So when you start dilly-dallying, texting on your phone and, doing different stuff and pacing around the gym and talking to people and, all these other things, then you end up spending an hour and a half in the gym and you still had a bad workout.
Right.
So it's like you didn't really solve any issues, but but then we claim that like we didn't have enough time. And it's like, well,
Yeah.
we did have enough time. It was a misallocation of that gym
Right.
time. So again, we've got to be really clear on having structure in what we're doing, a reason why we're doing the things that we're doing, and then hold ourselves internally and externally accountable to follow through on the things that we said we were going to do.
Yeah, that's super important because I definitely had those days where it's like, it was an hour and a half in the gym. I didn't accomplish much.
Yeah. And we all do. As long as that's not, happening more often than not, then you're okay.
Yeah, because then you start thinking, well, I don't have 2 hours or an hour and a half to go to the gym, but your workup shouldn't take that long.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, a solid workout is 45 minutes to an hour. You don't,
Yeah,
rarely will you need more than that amount of time.
very all good points for people who are looking to get into this. And I was thinking too, as we play out for this episode, another kind of interesting parallel between content creation is a lot of content creators, they're also coaches, or their monetization strategy. You're a coach and a content creator. So there is this kind of similarity, challenge with client acquisition. And I was just wondering if you had tips to offer for content creators from your industry. How do you approach challenge the process of client acquisition?
Yeah. Great question. I mean, client acquisition is the toughest part of any business ever, right? I mean, most of us are
Right.
like, if you're becoming a coach of something or offering a product or whatever, like doing your thing is actually pretty easy for the most part, right? Like the coaching part of my job is the easiest part of my job. The hardest part is acquiring new clients and customers
Right.
and whatnot. So I use my content to help drive traffic and to get clients, acquire clients, except I would say that I use it more as a way of displaying authority in a thing rather than just trying to go viral. Because, while that's possible, like it's not a strategy, right? If I could just, formulaically do that, I would have already done it and that would, it would be done.
Right.
But it's possible. You cross your fingers and hope every single day, but it's not a real strategy.
Agreed.
So you use this to say like, hey, look at this library of stuff. I know what I'm doing. I've got a podcast, 150 plus episodes. So people find that and listen to a few and they hear me for free. And they're like, hey, this guy knows what he's doing. Like there are hundreds of hours of me demonstrating my expertise online
Correct.
so that a potential client who finds me can accurately and confidently make a decision that, hey, this guy knows what he's doing. I like his style. I like his vibe. I like the way he talks and, all the stuff.
Yeah.
And so it's more of like, it's an authority builder rather than client acquisition machine. At this point for me, because of the size of my audience, I think that will change as things grow. Because even to this day, like most of my clients still come from referrals and like my personal network of real people that I know in real life. But then again, it's like, oh, that Daniel guy from high school is doing such and such a thing. It's like, oh, who is he? Because they don't remember, 10 years ago doing this stuff. But, oh, we go see his social media or his podcast. Or, oh, wow, like he's legit. Like this guy actually knows what he's talking about. I'll reach out and consider hiring him or do a consultation or whatever. So yeah, I think that using the content, and again, we talked about this earlier, is like, it's tough to play the content game. So not to forget to use your real world like connections and like real world regular marketing, going out and talking to people and being in your community. And then your content is the authority card to point people towards, to say, look at me, look at the things that I've done, look at the things that I talk about, look at the things that I know. It's a free trial of your services for, whatever coaching you're offering or whatever thing that you're doing.
That's such a great way for content creators of all types to think of their ability, especially when you're a beginner, because I think a lot of creators that I see online are trying to approach it that other way. Like they're putting all of the eggs in a basket of, like, I'm just going to create some viral videos and that's going to be my client acquisition process. Not even thinking that, okay, what happens if you did have a viral video? Had 100 potential clients. Could you circle? Well, probably not.
Exactly.
So
again, it's just not a real strategy. If you could do that, then do it. Great. But you obviously can't do that on the, flip of a switch just to create viral content and be an overnight sensation. The other thing to consider with like using only content as the only thing you use to acquire clients is think about, for people listening, like think about how many hours, how much time you've already spent on creating content. Like you are working for less than minimum wage by a lot. And it's like not even close, right? So continuing, back to our gym example, continuing to bash your head against the wall, trying to do that, like, yes, keep going, continue to do your thing and whatever, but that can't be the only thing that you rely on, because obviously it's not supporting itself enough up to this point. And so if you're struggling with just one more video, just one more tweet, one more Instagram post, one more whatever, like, yeah, maybe, but it's not a good ROI on that. So keep doing the thing, but you've got to find other ways to do it. So just give lots of value, show people that you're intelligent and competent and good at what you do and personable and all of these things. And then when they find you, then they're more likely to hire you. If you're just posting stuff to try and be viral, when it comes time to hire you, people are gonna be like, oh, this guy or girl or whatever, they look cool, they make cool videos, but they don't seem like they know what they're talking. I know people in the fitness space who have hundreds of thousands of followers, and they'll post and say like, hey, I'm looking for, 10 clients to sign up for blah, 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 blah. And they get 0 customers. And it's because they have lots and lots of followers, but their posting is not about education or showing expertise or anything. It's about, look at my abs, look at my butt, look at this, look at just like flashy this, fashion, these kind of things. And fine. So you've got to give value, give the people a reason to think that you're good at what you do. And then when they're ready, they'll find you. But you've got to use some, off internet marketing channels as well.
Yeah, I think the point you made about displaying authority is an important one for content creators to understand that can be the role for the content. Because the other thing some creators do is they want to put all the good content behind a paywall. I'll just post generic stuff out there that people could Google anyways.
Yeah.
It's like, well, how are you going to acquire clients on that basis, right? Like the more successful creators are often ones that put out their best stuff and give it away for free. And then it's like, oh, then why do you work with the person? It's because then you get the tailored, customized attention program thing.
Exactly. And this is extremely true in fitness and across the board in all, service and coaching and whatever. Like with the internet, there is no shortage of knowledge. You can learn anything, any piece of knowledge in 1 second. And so trying to gatekeep that is like, who are you gatekeeping it from? And then delete all that information off of Google. So just because you didn't say it doesn't mean like 8 million other people didn't say it. So you're not preventing anyone from like knowing the secret knowledge. And the fact is like, there are no secrets. So give everything away for free. And that what people pay for is the structure, the accountability, and the personality that you bring to them to be able to tailor that approach and like what works for me. Right. And like in the context of a podcast, we can give all kinds of fitness advice and stuff. And there's, hours and hours and hours of fitness advice and stuff on my podcast. But is it directly applicable to every single person who listens? No, of course not, because I'm just talking to, the audience or the guest. And so we don't know the exact context of that individual. But when you work with a coach, and again, fitness or any industry, they'll be able to be like, okay, well, here are the rules. And here's how we bend those rules to be applicable to you, the individual. And that's what people are paying for.
And with your own business, you see a point at which you might go the route of using, I guess, more digital strategy. Like, I don't know if you have a lead magnet that you attach to your website, and a lead magnet is a funnel to your service kind of approach. Have you been doing that, or is that something that you're planning in the future?
It's something that I've been lacking on, and because I haven't really needed it. You say that and it's like, well, could things have been better if I was using it? Like, yeah, probably. So like, I guess I have needed it. I've been slacking on that a little bit, but yes, definitely I will lean into those things more and the more like traditional internet way of doing things. And as the business like grows and morphs, that will become more important. And as the volume increases as well, right? Like, not that this is something that personally is like on my radar, but if I was going to ever sell like a product, like a t-shirt, I don't know, some gym t-shirt, like I can't just go and sell that to people like my neighbors and like, you need some volume, right? But at the same time, like, it doesn't make sense for me to start doing that right now because like it's going to have, only a handful of sales. Like, it's going to be losing me money by a lot.
Right.
So I think that, yes, like those more internet lead magnet to like sales page to, subscription service or physical product or whatever coaching service does make a lot of sense. But for now, all I'm doing is the one-on-one online training. And that is so personable that it's like, to have that whole system set up it's not like I'm making sales every single day. If I was doing that, I would be so completely overwhelmed with clients that I wouldn't be
Right.
able to like service them properly. So
That's
there is
right.
a so there is like a soft cap on the number of people that I can service at once, but when I change what I offer or add an offer that is like a much more low or like much more hands off from me, that
Right.
is more scalable, then yes, of course those things will play a larger role in my marketing efforts.
Yeah, it's a great point. It's really about figuring out what's the return on investment because you already got, you know, clients, adding lead bank, the sales funnel, all of that. And it's just leading to the service you're currently offering. It's like, well, here you're just adding a cost.
Yeah, and a cost of time. Like, it's good enough.
Right.
I'm gonna put 3 days of work in to like create a lead magnet and create this and create that and create all these things. If I just, talked to two more people, like I could have
Right.
signed two more clients and that would have only taken 2 hours versus like 3 days of work. And so there's a cost benefit to it. Now, those things, like I'm behind on those and I've been putting them off for too long, but it's because I always find something that's like,
Yeah.
well, this is more actionable right now for me to do this. This is
And so,
not having this lead magnet set up in this funnel. Yeah, it matters, but it's not immediately important. And so I always find
yeah,
things like, I'll just next week.
I think it's perfectly okay because I think that's where sometimes creators forget that they could, if you're a video editor or you're offering some other kind of service, you could build a significant business through referrals. And I think sometimes people feel they have to build that digital marketing infrastructure. You only need it when you need it.
Yeah, exactly. You're competing with everyone on the internet. Like
Yeah.
the downside to, you have access to the whole world, but the whole world also has access to a lot more people. You're not competing with the other content creators in your neighborhood. You're competing with a lot of content creators across the world, across languages, across everything. So you can't discount like, your personal network. And the other thing is understanding what is it that you are selling or offering and how many people, like how many clients do you really need? Like, I don't need
That's it.
500 clients. Like, there's no way that I could service 500 clients in the way that I that I service now. Like,
Yeah.
insane, right? So I don't need 500 or 5,000 or whatever. Like, if I had 50 clients, I would be like, that's rammed full. Like, I'd barely be able to keep up with that. That's 50 people. Like, there's
Sure.
8 billion people in the world. I don't need all of them to be a customer.
Right. Yeah. It's only if you're like, if you start building a team and you're really scaling, and that's where to think about like what is scalable for me? What do I want to do? Like I think if you want to lead a team, if not,
Yeah.
you probably don't need those hundreds of clients. Maybe do something else, like create a book, write a book, sell that online, create a course, like you say, there's all these other options. You gotta think about the right strategy.
Yeah. Yeah. Just think about what do you actually want out of it? How much money do you want or need to make from it? And be reasonable. Of course, you always want to, make millions of dollars, but like again, are you willing and able to do the things that it takes to do that? Like maybe not.
Yeah.
So understand what it is that you're actually trying to get. And then think about, well, what's the easiest way to get there? What's the minimum effective dose of things that I need to
Right.
get there? Like if I have 30 clients for your service of, you know, editing videos or whatever it is that you do, and you're a one-man show and you
Yeah.
have like, you have your software that you use and your ongoing expenses. Like the beauty of content creation, internet kind of businesses is like we have very low operating expenses.
Right.
We don't have to pay rent. We don't have to pay staff for the most part. We have, some expenses of your website and maybe some software that you subscribe to or, a microphone and whatever these things. But in the grand scheme
Yeah.
of things, like they're not that expensive compared to like, buying a warehouse and buying tons of
Right.
merchandise and renovating. Like these are crazy expenses or operating expenses are very low for the most part. So if you're just working for yourself, like you don't really need all that many clients because like 90% of that is just coming to you, minus some for the tax man. But 90% of it is coming straight to you. So
Yeah.
you really need a lot less than you think for most people. Yeah.
Well, you've told us a little bit about this stuff. So maybe in closing, you tell us, what you do and how people take.
Yeah. So best way is probably through Instagram. I mean, you can check on my website. Everything is just Daniel Yores, like but what I do is one-on-one online fitness coaching. So I work with people to get them healthy, strong, lean, fit, feeling good in their body. And my approach, as I say, is that I don't really have an approach. Everything is customized. So yes, we're going to work out, we're going to work on your nutrition, we're going to work on the lifestyle factors, but I don't have a system to say that, hey, I do this for everyone. No, I meet you where you are and then get you a little bit further from there and get you a little bit further from there and get you a little bit further from there. And we can keep pushing the envelope as long as you're happy, as long as you're continuing to set and reach goals and continue to be more fit and just make fitness a part of your lifestyle. So that's what I do. That's the best way that I can sum up what I do. And, I run the podcast and whatnot as well. And that's super fun, but it's kind of like, that's not really the business.
And then the name of your
thing.
podcast?
Very creatively, also just my name, the Daniel Yores podcast. And maybe this is an interesting thought. I get your thoughts on it and just put it out there for the listeners. But the reason that I named it that is because I looked at the top podcasts when I started it. And actually, the third birthday of my podcast was actually yesterday that we're recording this.
Yes.
Thank you. And so I looked at top podcasts, and most of them are like named after the person, right? At the time when I was looking at Joe Rogan Experience, Tim Ferriss Show, they're just named after the person. And I thought, okay, well, I can spend a bunch of time coming up with a very creative and unique and something or other fitness kind of title. I said, well, okay, but I don't have any names that are coming to my mind.
Yeah.
And if I make it fitness, then I'm tied to only fitness stuff for forever on the podcast. And of course, the podcast will always be fitness and health focused, but I want to give myself the latitude to explore some non-fitness topics and go off topic a little bit and fitness adjacent topics. So I think that was a good move on my part, because even friends and other people I have that I know who have podcasts, I know that it's their podcast, but I forget the name of the podcast. It's like, it's Joe's podcast. His name is the, whatever, but I forget. And so people know, they know you. And again, but when people are buying your services, they're not buying, the brand name fitness. They're buying Daniel Yores coaching. They're not buying some brand that I am, because it's just me. I'm the brand. They're buying me. Yeah. And so that's what people want. And so I think that that's a pretty good tool for people who are thinking about naming and branding and stuff. Just call it yourself. You can always change it later if you want to or need to, but name it after yourself, because people are buying you, listening to you, tuning into you. And then, you kind of branch out from there and you give yourself more flexibility to do whatever it is that you want.
I think it makes a lot of sense for a business like yours. Like you say, you're the expert, and that's what you want people to remember. And it's so hard, frankly, to come up with those names. You can brainstorm for hours and think, okay, well, it's thought of this before you go to the interview.
There's 15 of them. Yeah. I came across that too. It's I had a couple names and I looked them up. It's they're all something, okay. No one's going to have my name, so I'll just use that.
Yeah. Well, thanks very much for being on the show, Daniel. It's great spending some time.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. It's been fun. So hopefully it was, helpful to the listeners, and I'm glad that you enjoyed it as well. But thanks a lot, Tim.
Very helpful. Thank you.
I got a lot of great takeaways from this episode with Daniel Yores, but in this segment, I want to focus on the one overriding theme that I think makes the biggest difference in terms of our ability to fit fitness into our daily lives, and that is calendar management. Even with a super busy schedule, there's probably time in there somewhere where we can make time for exercise. And this is the big if we're willing to reprioritize fitness over other stuff, recalibrate how we're fitting it into our busy schedules, and reconceptualize the way we think about exercise itself. Because as I've been thinking about my conversation with Daniel and my experience with fitness over the last 3 decades, I've really come to think that these 3 areas hold the key to making a positive change for myself, and I hope it's going to help you too. So let's talk about each of these 3 things in turn. So the first one is just a hard truth that part of the reason fitness doesn't get prioritized is that there have been times when I have valued other things more. Work, school, content creation, what have you. Now, there is a reality here that sometimes it makes a lot of sense to reprioritize our schedules and put something else ahead of our workouts. Sometimes there is an early morning meeting we have to get out and rush to and can't afford to miss. Or there's a time-sensitive piece of content that does need to get done by a certain date. But in my experience, we often have a lot more latitude in these things than we might tell ourselves that we have. Maybe because these other things feel more important to us in the short term, or we're not enjoying the process of working out as much as we could So we take these other things and we use them as excuses for not working out. So my challenge to myself is to think harder about how urgent some of these things really are and whether or not I can actually squeeze in an hour or two here or there for the workouts, knowing that this is critical to the long-term sustainability of everything else. Second thing is to reduce the reliance on routines, which can get disrupted too easily if you have a hectic schedule, and then that leads to frustration and giving up on working out altogether. Let me give you an example. One of the times when I was in the best shape was when we lived in Toronto and had that gym in the basement of our apartment. I would work out every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday, and I hardly ever missed a day. That's because it was after work. There was hardly anything in my schedule that could disrupt my ability to work out, and it was also easy to get to where I was going to work out. So this workout routine just became an unquestioned habit. I mean, when I have a routine and I can just follow it, I can be very effective. But then what happened is we moved away from the location, the routine got busted up, and I've never really been able to get it back on track since then. And therein lies the problem with relying too heavily on routines to help achieve your goals, because routines can be disrupted. And if they can be disrupted, so can the thing that you're trying to achieve through the routine. And for the longest time, I thought that the answer was to just try and find some ideal, unbreakable routine, sometimes that would never be disrupted. And then that was the path back to where I was before. And in my experience, though, that's actually not the answer, because you do get to a certain point in life where those kind of predictable routines are not possible to create. There's always going to be something cropping up. And so we got to find another way. So after a lot of trial and error, I realized that the best way to deal with this is to set a weekly goal rather than trying to adhere to a weekly routine that is just not likely to be maintained. And so what I try to do is say that I'm going to work out 3 times a week and then block specific times in the calendar as appropriate for that week. And because I'm blocking times that I know are less likely to be disrupted, I have a much better chance of making the workout happen. But it's not necessarily going to be the same blocks of time every day, every week. We're going to have to be flexible and change it according to managing our time and managing our energy in those particular weeks. And that's okay. Just take a flexible, adaptable approach. But even to make that work, there is one more critical thing here, and I'm going to call that the enjoyment factor. And I would have to say that, like having a set time, I tended to usually have a very set workout routine that I would do pretty much every time that I went to the gym. Like I said, I'm a routine-based guy. Now that makes it easy to decide what to do for the workout, but it really also makes those workouts kind of boring over time because you're always doing the same thing. So we got to mix things up in order to make things more enjoyable. And that's not even a great way to build fitness and strength over time either, because as you do the same routine over and over again, your body adapts to that routine. And that's why I would hit these plateaus where it would be really hard to progress above the level that I had reached. It's like Daniel says, what got us from A to B isn't necessarily going to be what gets us from B to C. And you can apply that to content creation and many other things in life. That makes it all the more ironic that part of the reason for doing the same routine over and over was in the hopes of seeing faster progress in those particular muscle groups. But as we know, that is ultimately self-defeating. And maybe, just maybe, I've got to the point where I can take a more holistic view of fitness, try mixing different fitness activities together at different times, and make better progress overall. I'll let you know how it goes. And if you're interested in connecting with Daniel to get his help with your fitness routine, I've linked his information in the description. And to help you with creating that system, I made this video here, which is about the video content management system that I've created to help myself make more videos in less time and with greater consistency than ever before. Thanks for watching. Check it out, and we'll see you in the next video.